Millions across the globe are feeling the effects of the coronavirus outbreak. Stock market has plummeted. Store shelves are mostly out of essential items. Large events are getting cancelled. And however, some effects are less apparent. There is a less familiar story about COVID-19. The crisis is boosting innovation with the emergence of brand new ideas, mRNA vaccine, a new technology, and with the application of existing ones in surprising new ways. The crisis has caused an acceleration in adoption of technologies. This is pushing the world further into the future. The coronavirus pandemic has split the startup and tech world into have and have-nots. While some segments saw a meteoric rise in consumption, user base, and consequently investments, others were displaced from their upward trajectory in the aftermath of the pandemic-induced lockdown. Video conferencing. With work from home becoming the new normal, meetings moved from boardrooms to bedrooms, and video conferencing platforms became the means to connect for work as well as personal life. And a little-known video calling app from the US made the most of this shift, even in India. At US dollars 186 million, profits of Zoom doubled over a year ago in the July-September quarter of 2020, even as its user base more than quadrupled over the same period. Fledgling video calling apps of big tech firms such as Google Meet, Microsoft Teams, and Cisco WebEx jumped onto the Zoom bandwagon and made the most of the boom. Even Facebook's WhatsApp is testing a video and voice calling feature for its desktop app. Closer home, virtual event hosting platform AirMeet raised $12 million in a Series A funding round led by Sequoia Capital India. Streaming and short video. With cinemas shut and public spaces out of bounds, more on that later, we took to streaming to watch the latest shows and films from around the world, binge-watching entire seasons and movie franchises over a weekend locked up at home. Netflix added over 25 million subscribers in the first half of 2020, but that growth has slowed now. Earlier this month, Disney plus Hotstar announced that at 26 million, it accounts for 30% of Disney's streaming user base. In fact, the streaming service onboarded 7 million users during the truncated and delayed Indian Premier League this year. Production houses were quick to notice this trend and chose to release their films, from Mulan to Gulabo Sitabo, directly on streaming platforms. And when that was not enough, we took to TikTok to either watch or make our own 50 seconds of fame. India banned TikTok in June, but a rash homegrown alternatives quickly scaled to fill the void. The segment is already churning and attracting investments. E-commerce, online D2C. Drone technology has been around for a while, but during the pandemic, it's starting to realize its considerable potential. With social distancing the new normal, health systems around the world are now looking at drones as a new and better way to deliver products, such as blood, cancer treatments, and vaccines. Every hospital system and health system on Earth is suddenly trying to reconfigure itself to a new reality, to extend the reach of the hospital system directly into the home, enabling care closer to where patients live so they have to travel less. It's more convenient and the patient takes less risk of getting infected if they need to access general care. From mid-June to September 2020, Zipline delivered more than 100,000 medical products, as many as over the previous 3 years. India's pandemic-induced lockdown, one of the world's strictest, stalled all but essential goods and services, including deliveries by e-commerce firms. But as the restrictions eased, Amazon India announced that it had doubled its profits year-on-year in the April-June quarter. The festive season lived up to its billing as well, with Flipkart, Myntra, and Amazon clocking $8.3 billion worth of gross sales, a 65% growth over the previous year as per a Red Sea report. Direct-to-consumer companies in categories from personal grooming to food and beverages also saw a revival after a sluggish initial few months of the lockdown. EdTech, FinTech, SaaS. A bunch of unicorns, startups with a billion-dollar valuation, emerged out of the pandemic in these three sectors: an academy in EdTech, Razorpay, Pine Labs, and Zerodha in FinTech, and Postman in SaaS. What's more, there was even a decacorn in EdTech startup by Juice. Clearly, it was raining investor monies at most of these startups. Zerodha is bootstrapped though. During economic downturns, life can be much harder for startups, which are so often the engines of innovation. But back in the booming world of online food delivery, some startups have found hungry investors. Sisters Guinea and Akhin run Karma Kitchen. It's a startup that offers flexible kitchen space known as ghost kitchens to cooks and restaurants catering mainly to the delivery market. While some ghost kitchens are owned by a single restaurant chain, Karma Kitchen has many different companies, hot stationing under one roof, producing everything from West African donuts to tandoori curries. The company was founded 2 years ago and the pandemic has transformed its fortunes. What would have taken us potentially 3 years to achieve has now taken 8 months in terms of market demand. The ambition of fast-growing startups like Karma Kitchen can attract investors, but it can also end up with the startup selling itself to a larger company with deeper pockets, and that brings its own risk. You see, from research on mergers and acquisitions, when an acquisition happens, the innovativeness of that small firm typically goes down. The question really is whether large conglomerate will be able to fuel these startups in order for them to carry the front in terms of innovation and for that innovation to then be disseminated into the rest of the organization. Even with all these innovations, some industries who cannot make the changes took hit. Hyperlocal services. Companies offering hyperlocal services from Swiggy and Big Basket to Urban Company and PharmEasy gained during the pandemic, despite layoffs at some of these companies during the lockdown. Zomato announced it is likely to record its best ever monthly sales in December. Online groceries clocked 1.7 times GMV in June compared to January. Urban Company said it crossed its pre-pandemic peak by more than 30% towards the second half of the year. Techceleration is pushing companies further and faster into the future. Exactly how many years into the future we have been pushed by the crisis varies. It depends on the behavior, it depends on the country, but it does seems to be sort of the order of 5 years. So welcome to 2025. History shows that innovation often thrives during times of crisis. Take the financial crash of 2008, which led to the widespread adoption of cloud computing. The cloud had been around since the early 2000s, but it gained a new footing as the economic slowdown took hold. Companies were very often reluctant to try cloud computing. They thought it wasn't secure, and they gave it a try, found it was cheaper, found it was more secure, and cloud computing has expanded very rapidly. As well as accelerating the adoption of developing technologies, crisis can also foster the development of entirely new ideas. A good example of crisis that led to a lot of invention would be the Second World War. So you get the first digital computers, which are used for code breaking. You get the first jet engines that paves the way for Mars air travel. You get nuclear technology, which is used for weapons but can also be used to generate energy. And also you get the first rockets. When it comes to new ideas, COVID-19 has left its mark in the field of medicine, where researchers around the world have pioneered new techniques in the development of vaccines. The phenomenal work has been done. Multiple teams producing vaccines in months rather than years, using entirely new technologies in some cases. So these mRNA vaccines are a new type of vaccine and they seem to work extremely well. That's very impressive example of invention. In most industries, the pandemic has boosted innovation by forcing companies to adopt new ways of doing things purely as a matter of survival. We have innovated for necessity. Many of the innovations that have flourished during the crisis are centered around digital technology and will have become part of everyday life when the world returns to more ordinary times. Technologists and policymakers face the challenge of ensuring these new innovations do not entrench inequality, but instead broaden opportunity. I think that this is really an important chance for humanity to not only bring new technology to bear, but for the first time bring it to bear in a way that is equitable for humans on Earth. Let me end with the following. Successful people recognize crisis as a time for change. From lesser to greater, smaller to bigger. Words of Edwin Louis Cobb.